Hi pookies, hello. How are you doing today? Welcome back to another episode of the Blunt News podcast where we say things we were never meant to say out loud. I am your host, Jen. Grab your water, grab your notebook, grab your pen and lock in. Today we are talking about something people like to misuse, oversimplify, or weaponize and pretend to be confused about. Today we are talking about consent. What is consent? The word consent is a noun and it means permission to do something or agreement to do something. Higher. When we say permission to do something, it means you were asked, I approached you. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the tea example. I approached you. Do you want tea? Yes or no? Simple as that. Do you want tea? Yes or no? You are asked. That is seeking consent. You had the capacity to decide. This means that you are not intoxicated, you are not unconscious, you are not emotionally overwhelmed, you are not in a position where you could not make choices for yourself. And in this situation, you were capable of making choices and you chose yes or no. That is consent. You were free to say yes or no. Just like I said, do you want tea? That is a yes or no question. Consent is a yes or no question. So there is 4 principles of consent. Consent must be informed, consent must be voluntary, consent must be ongoing and given with capacity. What do I mean? Consent must be informed. Do you want tea? What is going to be in this tea? I am going to make you tea using tea leaves. I don't know, chamomile tea. It is going to have sugar. It is going to have this, that, and the other. Before you give consent, all information regarding the situation has to be given to you. You cannot consent to what you don't know clearly about, and you cannot consent to a script that is going to be flipped later on. Okay? Therefore, consent has to be informed. Consent has to be voluntary. No one should manipulate you, no one should coerce you, no one should force you or corner you, put you in a situation where you have no choice but to give consent. Which means I can't be like, do you want tea? You say no. Are you sure? Maybe, have you ever tried tea before? Maybe you should try it so that you know how tea tastes like. And, maybe you will change your mind. Maybe you have never had tea made by me, so you don't know how tea made by me tastes like. You should try it. No, it is yes or no. I said no. Respect the no. I do not want tea. Consent is ongoing, which means it can be withdrawn at any time. Okay? So, if I wanted tea yesterday, doesn't mean that I want tea today. If I said yes to a situation yesterday, I have not said yes to that situation right now. You should ask me, are you comfortable with this situation now? If the answer is still yes, proceed. And I can reach a point and decide I no longer want to do this and say, I know you were making me tea, but I no longer want to drink tea. That should be respected as well, which is why I am saying consent is ongoing. You can withdraw it at any single moment, okay? And consent is given with capacity. What does this mean? Consent is not given when you're intoxicated, unconscious, mentally impaired, or emotionally overwhelmed. Consent is given when you're in the right state of mind, right situation, comfortable situation, perfect state of mind. You're not, you can't be intoxicated and be giving consent, which is why you respect people who are intoxicated. You don't push them into doing things because they are not in a capacity to say yes or no. So what happens when consent is violated? There is a bunch of things that happen when consent is violated, and we shall talk about them. The first one, the victims may experience PTSD. PTSD is short for post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a disorder that occurs when you experience a traumatic experience. A traumatic experience is, for example, an accident can be a traumatic experience. Sexual assault can be a traumatic experience. So you get what I'm saying, yeah? And something else that victims may experience due to violation of consent is anxiety, depression, dissociation, sleep disorders, sexual dysfunctions, loss of trust, social withdrawal, and low self-esteem. Anxiety is where you feel fear, worry, or apprehension about a situation, and most of the time the fear is disproportional to the situation. For example, if you have been assaulted in any way, sexually, verbally, physically, if you have been assaulted in any way, it is very likely that you're going to feel anxious when a similar situation occurs. For example, as a child, you were assaulted. It could be physically, sexually, verbally. It is very likely that you're going to develop anxiety based on that situation, meaning that it is very likely that put in a similar situation, for example, you used to be taken to a basement to be beaten up, you're going to have a very strong and realistic fear of basements, even if it has been clearly told to you that basement haina kitu mbaya, I only have toys in this basement. You are still going to fear being in that environment because you have a traumatic experience that occurred in that environment. So, violation of consent causes victims to live in anxiety, which I think is hardly unfair to the victims. Violation of consent also leads to depression. Depression is a mood disorder that is characterized by low mood, sadness, constant sadness, feeling of disinterest in what you used to love doing. And depression is minimalized. Yes, it is minimalized a lot. A lot of people talking about depression, they go, uko na depression na unaweza kunywa pombe, which honestly makes absolutely no sense, but okay. Uko na depression na unaweza vuta bangi also makes no sense. What these drugs do is they make you forget about the incident momentarily, but once the effect wears off, the effect is going to come back. You need to understand that violation of consent does not only occur in the bedroom. It can also occur in a medical setting. I am going to talk about the medical setting because I am a medic, certified, but yeah, I am a medic, so I am well versed with medical setting, okay? So, consent in medical setting is violated when procedures are done without proper explanation. You know how when you go to do scans, when you go for like examinations and all that, you are supposed to receive very detailed explanations of what they are going to do to you. Which is why when a doctor speaks to you, he or she is usually like, I am going to, nitakudunga sindano. Uko sawa nikikudunga sindano hapa? And then anakudunga sindano. I am going to be touching your face. Are you okay with me touching your face? Ndio sasa anakushika. That is what consent is about in medical setting, okay? Also, dismissal of patient's discomfort. When you tell a medic, I am not okay with you touching me in this manner, and they tell you, si ni mimi ninajua kenye nafanya, wewe ujui kenye nafanya, wewe ndio daktari ama ni mimi. That is violation of consent because you clearly stated that the situation made you uncomfortable. Whatever the person was doing made you uncomfortable. But instead of the person respecting that and resulting into another method, they dismissed your discomfort. That is violation of consent, and that is grounds for you suing the medical practitioner, okay? Also, when decisions are made for the patient instead of with the patient, that is a violation of consent. When the medical professionals, along with your family, decide that, you know what, akona hii ugonjwa and this is what is right for them, tutafanya a brain surgery and itakuwa this and this and this. Hii mambo haijaambiwa kwako, imeambiwa kwao. Kwa hao wengine wenye they're not even going through the procedure. This is a violation of your consent because you should be able to sign the papers and say, unless it is an emergency. For example, you're passed out after an accident. That is different because we said when you're unconscious, you cannot consent to anything. But when you are conscious, your medical practitioner is supposed to consult you and get your approval before doing anything to you. So, what do we do when our consent is violated? If you are a child and you're watching this, hi child. If you are a child and your consent is violated, first you need to talk to an entrusted adult. Who is an entrusted adult? Someone who cares about you, someone who will believe you, someone who will listen to you, okay? That is a trusted adult, someone who will do something about the situation. If you tell your parent, for example, your father is touching you inappropriately, then you tell your mother, and your mother is like, usiambie watu, unajua unaharibia baba yako jina, do not listen. That is not a trusted adult. A trusted adult will do something about the situation. A trusted adult will take you away from the situation. Know that it is not a secret. Let nobody tell you, this is between us. Ini siri yetu. Hiyo si siri yenyu. Kwanza mtu mwenye anakuambia hivyo, hiyo ndio hapo huweki siri ikifika kwa your place. Okay? Someone telling you, I am going to touch you inappropriately and usiambie mtu, sawa, ini mimi na wewe, because you are mature for your age. Lies. He is immature for people his age. That is why he is coming to you. You are not too mature for your age. There is nothing like maturity. There is nothing like secrecy in violation of consent. Okay? Also, you need to understand that your body is still yours. Yes, you have been violated. Yes, this person has crossed major boundaries in your life, but that does not mean that you have lost your power. It was not your fault. Therefore, your power still belongs to you. Your innocence still belongs to you. And if you are an adult and your consent is violated, first things first, go to safety. Remove yourself from that situation. Leave. Walk away. Go to somewhere where you feel safe. Go talk to someone who makes you feel safe. And with that, we have come to the end of our episode. I hope you have learned a thing or two about consent. If you're a parent, teach your child about consent. You should teach them not to violate other people's consent and not to let people violate their consent, and to report in case it happens. Yeah, so I will see you in the next episode. Make sure you like, comment, share. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I love you so much. Bye.